Word. Okay. So welcome to the webinar. Your employees hate your intranet, but they don't have to. I'd like to introduce myself and also my colleague, Carlos. My name is Karen Borchert, and I'm the EVP of Strategy at Phase2. I work on many of our product efforts, including our intranet tool, Open Atrium, and would like to introduce you to Carlos Ruiz, who is the Senior Project Manager for Phase2. Carlos, would you like to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your background with intranets and employees that hate them?
Sure. Good morning, Karen. Good morning, everyone. I've been working in the intranet space since about 2000, end of 2000, when I converted over our company's intranet to SharePoint 2001. Since then, I've used every flavor of SharePoint, and right now I've been using a lot of Open Atrium 2 to build intranets. So I have a long history and seen a lot of great intranets and not so great intranets.
Great. Great. Well, welcome, Carlos, and thanks for joining us today. Today we're going to, Carlos and I both mentioned that we work directly with Open Atrium, which is an open source collaboration tool. But today we're actually not going to talk about any one specific collaboration tool. We're going to talk about all of them. So here is our small disclaimer. This presentation is meant for two things: to help you understand the elements of your intranet that might be bugging people, and to give you some ways to fix them. Ugly intranets are everywhere, regardless of software or solution. So this is an equal opportunity intranet criticism, and no intranets were harmed in the making of this presentation. So just to note that we are having a little bit of fun with some of the intranets that are out there in the world, and certainly none of us are probably free and clear with a perfect and beautiful intranet. All intranets have their issues, and this is meant to have a little fun with that, as well as show some ways that we can make them better. So, why do your employees hate your intranet? There's a lot of different reasons, a lot of different things that make people really hate their intranet. People, hate the FAQs. They use them wrong. They are outdated. They don't know how they work. They're huge. They're challenging in a number of different ways. So we're going to actually just get through some of those things today and talk about a few of them specifically. It comes down to a few things. It comes down to clutter and closets, which Carlos is going to talk all about, navigation overload, stale content, design for everyone / no one, and dumb social, not smart social. So we're going to talk about what all of those things mean and give you some great examples, not only of some of the problems that are here, but also some of the ways that they can be fixed, and some examples of some really beautiful makeovers of intranets as well. So let's start with clutter and closets. This is one of the greatest challenges that Carlos faces in working with some of our enterprise clients in this. And Carlos, I'll turn it over to you. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you mean by clutter and closets when it comes to an intranet?
Sure. Too often companies try to take the portal idea or the intranet idea and putting all information in front of everyone at the exact same time too far. And what you end up getting is this huge mosh pit of content and data and text and links, and they don't take into account what the experience is when someone first launches the intranet and looks at it and is overwhelmed by the amount of information. Working with a current client in Open Atrium, and it was that same conversation when doing a gap analysis, starting with their current site, saying, look, you're trying to reach every audience in your organization all at once, and what you're doing is you're alienating all of them all at once. So force yourself to really be stingy with the space you allocate on your landing page, especially the landing page.
That's great. So let's take a look and see if Carlos can help us diagnose what's wrong. Okay, Carlos, tell us what's wrong with this intranet landing page.
Okay, well, where do you want me to start? I guess is the answer, but right away, it's just extremely cluttered, very text heavy, and it's not to say that you have to shove a bunch of pictures on there. I mean, there are some icons, but I have this. This is one rule that I like to share with clients. Lean back as far as you can from the screen and squint a little so that the words blur and you can't read it. That's usually the first impression someone gets when they land on an intranet. You know what the content is because you put it there. So you know that market watch is really important, employee resources is really important. But when the person gets there, they're not reading any one of those things. They're taking it all in at once, and it's a very loud and busy intranet. So it doesn't give your eyes room to breathe and to take a break.
Great. Great. And let's take a look at another one. And this is a look at one that many would say, oh, well, this is a really modern design, and it certainly looks more up to date than the last one that we saw. But as we scroll through and we take a look at the different things here, what problems does this one still have?
Well, as you mentioned, it looks really pretty, right? There's some theming. It's more modern theming. And while it might not be, it doesn't look immediately like the A&E hoarder house, it still really is if you analyze some of it. If you can scroll back up.
Sure. I hope I can. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. So there's still a ton of information here, right? But what they've also done is hidden more information on this landing page. So you have global news, you have regional news, local news. All of those are still information containers. Then you have my links and quick links, so that's already link overload. And I think someone must have thought, what's a way that someone can save some things from quick links to make it personalized? That's what I'm assuming my links are. But you're just contributing to more information. So this is a hoarder house that someone's kind of swept most of it into a closet, so it doesn't look like it's full. But once you start peeking behind doors, it's still a ton of information all at once.
Right, right. Okay, well, so let's talk a little bit about what people can do about, let's talk a little bit about containers. So you talked about the idea of the different containers that you see. And obviously this is a intranet that certainly doesn't pass the squint test that you talked about earlier. Let's look at all of the containers that are here on this particular one. Can you talk a little bit about the containers and what you see as being the problem here?
So more containers is just more information, and there's nothing wrong with containers, and even tabs, like on that previous one, have their place on landing pages if done correctly, and like everything in life in moderation. The problem is when you take this to the extreme, and this is very container heavy. What is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
It's 11
10,
containers.
11.
Yeah,
that's 11. So back to the current client I'm working with now, they probably had twice as many on their landing page. And what I try to express to them was force yourself. It's hard, and it almost becomes like choosing your favorite child, but force yourself to keep it to single digits, right? That's one of the rules. It's not scientifically proven. I don't have a bunch of case studies. I just found that the experience is better when you can keep it to single digits. And to me, the sweet spot is 5 to 7 containers, because at some point, what gets lost is people say, well, I want to save that extra click, right? If I put this one more container here, that's one less click I have to force the user to engage in. The difference is you're then reducing the amount of engagement on this page altogether, and you would have benefited more from making them click one other page. Clicks aren't terrible as long as you don't bury things under 12 clicks.
Great. We're going to see some clicks here in a little bit. So let's talk about this one. Let's talk about this makeover and what seems to be going right here from a clutter perspective. I think right away we can all see that this is a much less cluttered feeling homepage. Can you talk a little bit about the containers here and about what makes this one so much better? I mean, there's still lots of information here, right, Carlos?
Mm-hmm.
But tell us what makes this one less cluttered cluttered and less closety.
Well, and they've already replaced some of the text with images, as you can see. Even the weather widgets, I'm not a fan of a weather widget. Again, it has its purpose like everything else, very specific. But there they're only showing you one day at a time, right? Or they've even minimized it to show the next day. I think one of the pages had maybe the full year showing you the weather that was coming up. What I'm really impressed with here, which is extremely difficult to do, usually to get clients to agree to, announcements and updated policies, they're only displaying 2 at a time. Almost like a teaser, the way it should be, right? It teases you for the information, gives you what's most relevant to you now, and then gives you the option to see them all.
Yeah.
To get buy-in, either they just said, we're only going to show 2, or they have a really great relationship with their users and we're able to convince them. I love the carousel. It's almost that news type of carousel where you have a navigation on the right that also teases you with information, but not too much. And I mean, great use of colors on this page.
Yeah, great. I wouldn't have thought that just having 2 announcements would make such a difference, or two items in an intranet widget would make such a difference, but it really does make a big difference. And I think, as we can see here, this is looking at 5 or 6 containers rather than 11 containers, and just that small difference from 11 down to 6 is a really big change for the experience.
Yeah, give it the squint test. Even with the squint test, your eyes don't focus necessarily on so much text.
Yeah. Let's look at this one. Tell us what you think about Target Canada's intranet here.
I love the use of this. I love this design too. I love the use of empty space, negative space, so you have a lot of space between your containers. It gives you real separation. It isolates the information so you know that you're looking at different containers. Look at this page. There's not a lot of graphics. Maybe, the one obviously behind all the information, but other than that, it's just those 3 up at the top. This is a great use of containers, the total number of containers as well, and it's really easy to see what you're going to get from each one of them, even though this seems to be, it looks to me like this was maybe a mock-up since 2 of them repeat. But the title is very prominent. The text underneath it is smaller, so it's very easy to tell what you're going to look at and what information you're going to pull from this.
Yeah, great. Well, let's sum up a couple of tips and tricks for reducing clutter. So first, that Carlos mentioned was the single-digit rule. So no more than 9 containers, and 5 to 7 is the sweet spot for most sites. Asking yourself, why do we need this on the landing page, is a really important question as you're thinking about your intranet and helping people like it more and want to be there. The squint test that we talked about, do you see a lot of blurred text? Do you see, do things really pop out at you, or do you just see a great big sea of links and text? This is how people see your intranet at first. And very often, when those of us who work on intranets a lot or spend a lot of time with our company intranet, you get really accustomed to what it looks like, and you sort of forget just how much stuff is on the front page of your intranet. So the squint test is a nice way to remind yourself what other people see it when they're coming into it fresh. And then third, don't be a hoarder, and closets count. So don't hide content behind endless tabs and closets on your site. Adding a huge set of links so that nobody has to look beyond the first page can actually make people not look at the first page at all. So those are some tips and tricks for reducing clutter. Carlos, anything to add to those?
The other thing I would say in terms of the almost first 2 bullets is there's always a disconnect between content producers and content consumers, in the sense that content producers always feel their content is very important, and I created this, I think it looks great, why wouldn't someone want to read what I just made and consume it? And then content consumers don't necessarily have that attachment to it, so always kind of keep that in mind. It's almost like you don't want to overwhelm everyone with pictures of your kids all the time. Look at my kids, look at my kids. It's the same idea of that. Is this important because I created it, or is it important because there's real business value to this?
Yeah, Absolutely. Great point. Great clarification there. Well, let's move on to another reason that that people hate their intranet. Let's talk a little bit about navigation and navigation overload, and just the sheer quantity of navigation that happens on intranet. Carlos, why, if we are so good at creating just 3 or 4 links on the homepage of our public-facing site, do we have 75 navigation links on our intranets?
I think it's fear. It's fear of not having everything at your audience's fingertips, and being afraid that they're not going to know how to search, even though, I mean, Google is a verb now, right? So people understand search pretty well. And again, it's not very different from that concept of I have to put all information somewhere where everyone can see it at any given moment.
Right. Got it. That's great. So let's take a look at a couple of examples here. This is I think one of our favorites around our place in terms of looking at navigation overload. Carlos, walk us through this big guy.
Oh wow! So this is pretty common actually, where you see the endless kind of rabbit hole of navigation. So you start from working here and then procurement, but then you see there's other options. That's what the arrows show, and then vendor performance and monitor vendors. So it has this choose your own adventure feel to the navigation, where you don't know where you might end up or how do you find your way out of this navigation maze. Then this is more design than it is navigation, but maybe don't make your navigation the exact same color as the background of your navigation as the background of your content containers, because they can get lost. If right now they're showing monitor vendors selected, but if you take it back a step under procurement vendor performance, then that vendor performance will get lost in that screen. The other thing is what was the benefit of breaking out vendor performance and monitor vendors when there aren't other choices? It's only vendor performance and monitor vendors. It's
right.
You almost walk this person all the way to the information they needed specifically.
Right. And I think another note about this one too is just that little lock next to the word monitor vendors indicates that that might be a private link, and so for somebody to do all of the work of working through the choose your own adventure of this navigation and then getting to something that they may probably not be able to access could be a really frustrating experience.
Yeah, that's also a really great point, and that it doesn't even have to be with the frustration of navigating all the way to the end. Whatever system you use, whatever your intranet solution is, it should allow you to not tease your audience. I can't stress enough how it's frustrating. It's a frustrating experience to be able to see something that you can't access. Yeah. Even if the security's there, it's take that extra step and make sure they can't see it if it's not intended for them.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk a little bit about that as well around data security. So let's talk about a stark difference from that beauty. Let's talk about the GE Imagination at Work site, and I've put the full site over to the left, and then a close up of the navigation up here to the right. Talk to us about the navigation here. How did they do this without having so many links, do you think?
Well, I think they have links, right? So if you analyze it, there are a few links on here. It's just they're done in a really intelligent way. So you have your traditional top nav, right, which are for business, for consumers, but then they break out some into icons. So Twitter, Facebook, all those social media ones. That's a really good use of icons, because those are icons that almost anyone can identify. So they have a combination of text and imagery to break it up, so it's not so overwhelming. And you can already tell there's not a ton of submenus underneath that, because it isn't prompting you for possible options where to go.
Right, and the navigation here is explaining exactly who it's for, and then getting you to the right place for that. So rather than having everybody be able to find everything on the front page, there's a real clear portal to places for business, for consumers, for investors, that takes you right to the right place. I also think it's worth noting that, just on above the fold of this intranet, you see actually two different search bars, one at the top right that is indicated for sort of a general search of the site, and then one that's really specific to a job search. But creating those really specific search options, and offering people the opportunity to look for exactly what they're looking for, rather than just try to navigate to it, is another strategy for reducing some of that navigation overload.
Sure, I love the design here too, because you can tell from the top, it's really subtle, but they have a stock ticker up there, right?
Yeah.
And it's just that information you need. You don't need to dedicate a whole widget or web part to a stock ticker.
Right.
Really well done.
Yeah, very well done. So let's talk a little bit about improving navigation. So the first tip and trick, you shouldn't need a map for your navigation, right? Somebody should be able to navigate your site without trying to see a full map of all of the places that they could go. Choose your own adventure. Similarly, choose your own adventure is not a good strategy for your intranet. You are not asking people to wind down a path and follow it until they maybe get to something that they can access and maybe get to something that they can't. That's not a good strategy for your intranet. And then third, just like Clutter, you have to think about the exact same strategy. What do our teams most need to know? Because if everything's important, nothing's important. So Carlos, can you talk a little bit about that, in the idea of data security and not teasing clients? What are some of the things that you are employing or that you're using or that you've seen in intranet systems that allow your clients to be able to not tease their employees with information that they can't see? Or how are you solving that problem?
Well, the most common way is the solution I'm using now. If the person doesn't have access to it, it just doesn't show up for them. Right? There's no need to designate that. Hey, look at this piece of information. Oh, wait, no, I'm kidding. It's not intended for you. It's just not there. So right away, there's nothing for them to be frustrated about, to be curious about, or wonder, what's behind that. Another way is if there's a really small group of people that need that information, then don't put it somewhere where a lot of people will access. Even if it is hidden, that's probably not the best place for it. Anyway, it should probably have its own space or site, depending again on the intranet solution that you're using.
Yeah. Great. And
so that speaks to architecture.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is also a place where some of the ideas of circles or groups, or content that's restricted to a specific subset of users, can come in really handy. And that's very common in a lot of the intranet tools that are out on the market today, both open source and non. So it's something to look for as you're thinking about if you have content that you'd like to restrict to some and not others. Finding a solution with good data security and good group restrictions is something you want to look for. Okay, well, let's move on to stale content. This is a common problem too. This one hits home for a lot of us. We spent $860,000 rebuilding our intranet, and the most popular page is still the cafeteria menu. The idea here and the question here is, what are people really coming to your intranet for? So Carlos, can you talk a little bit about your experience with clients in terms of how do they determine what people are coming to their intranet for, and also what to keep and what to get rid of?
It's often you have to know the organization. Obviously, if you're part of that organization, you have that extra benefit, that advantage. If not, then this is where discovery becomes really important, and asking those questions and pulling that information from the people who should know what people want in that in the organization. It could become difficult because you could end up speaking to a lot of people during discovery. So sometimes it's just knowing, okay, from a business perspective, what's going to bring the most value on this page. And you could take that, course as well. The cafeteria menu, I'll tell you, I've never seen an organization where the cafeteria menu wasn't one of the most popular things on the intranet. It might not fit, but if it's going to bring people there, if you can find a way to keep it on the site, it's usually a pretty big draw. So just know the feel for the organization.
Right. I like that. So here's an example. This one's a little bit blurry. Sorry for that. Of a pretty challenging one. One of the things that you note here is that you really have no idea how old or new this content is. And this is a really common intranet. In an intranet is a huge list of online forums, a lot of them in PDF, a lot of them in multiple formats, and very often they don't have a clear understanding of when they've been updated or how to know whether they're still something of use. Is this something, Carlos, that could be fixed?
It is. Really, the challenge here is for whoever's maintaining either the forms or the intranet, because you're going to give yourself a lot of work. The minute one of these become stale or outdated, all the other ones are going to have that. They're going to have that same stigma.
Right.
So then no one's going to trust them. And what's going to happen is all these departments that are listed under there, they're going to start contacting the admins of those departments and saying, can you send me the banking information form? Can you send me the appointment card order form? So just adding, when something was last updated. But even then, you still have to have a strategy in place to keep everything up to date and make sure that information does not go stale.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a really beautiful intranet that has been very, very highly regarded. This is the National Geographic Connect intranet. And one of the things that you notice right off the bat here is that there's almost nothing on the front page of this intranet that is static or that is not fed automatically through another system. So the news and articles area is fed by their news system. The upcoming events is fed by a calendar. The NG Plus box on the right is fed by discussions and content that people are having real time, and the need to know is based on some announcements. So right away on this, assuming that there are things happening in the news, on their calendar, in conversations, and in announcements, this content is automatically populating to the front page with very, very fresh content. Carlos, can you talk a little bit about how you usually advise clients on the strategy for their front page and what should feed in and what should not?
Well, to piggyback a little bit off of what you said, the reason this makes sense, and it is a pretty intranet site, is because you're giving people who already produce content an avenue to display that content. One of the common areas where information becomes stale is you get this content management solution and you say, wow, now we can empower different people to speak to the audience. Let's get this, EVP somewhere to produce a blog every week, every quarter, whatever. And then it turns out that person is too busy to do it. So their first blog sits there for a year and a half, never updated. And it's because that's not their job. Their job isn't necessarily to produce that content. So this is a great strategy, is the people who are already producing that content, whose job it is to produce that content to keep it fresh, just give them an avenue to do it. That doesn't mean that executive blogs don't work. You just have to know who's going to be producing that content. Either get their admin to make sure it's updated, or you as the owner of the intranet, you make sure that it's updated, but now you're giving yourself more work. Right. And it's also a governance strategy behind it, right? So even at the bottom, it looks like there's some banners. I don't know if those are probably auto-generated from their ad sales system, or at least it should be. If not, what does the governance document say about how often those are reviewed to make sure that they're fresh?
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about a governance document? What is a governance document, and how is it used in an intranet?
I would say a governance document is probably 80% of the success of your intranet.
Wow. Okay.
All because it tells you, very few people put a lot of importance into the governance document, but that dictates everything on the site, how often it's updated, who updates it, what people can or can't do on the site. And that's where you want to state all those policies around the intranet. Take the time, invest in it. It's not fun. It's not fun at all. Very few people are really going to engage in it, but when it's done right and when you can communicate the importance to everyone, that's when you keep your intranet running well. It doesn't become a junk drawer where all of a sudden people start adding another widget. Well, this would be really great to see on the site. Let me add that here. It just keeps control over your entire system.
That's great. That's great advice. Great advice. So let's just continuing on some tips and tricks there. Besides the governance document, which we'll add to this page, don't rely on a single person for content freshness, especially on your front page. That's a really important tip and a note to check back on yourself as you're thinking about and designing an intranet for your organization to make sure you don't have one person who's the sole source of content freshness. Well thought out listings, events, news, announcements can keep content fresh more automatically, assuming that those listings are being populated by people that are creating content already, as we discussed. Connecting to existing systems can help you pull in fresh content. So this is really key. An intranet where you have to re-enter your events from your calendar or re-enter announcements from an internal email or internal announcement system are going to create the need for duplicate content, and that can be really, really cumbersome for an organization. So connecting to existing systems like Google Calendars or like your document management system can be an extremely powerful way to keep your content very, very fresh. So as you're looking for intranet solutions or investigating intranet solutions or looking to build one, you really want to think about whether they have the capability for integration, and think about the systems that you currently have in your organization, whether it's SharePoint or Alfresco or Google or any of those, and which ones you might want to bring content in from your system so that your intranet stays fresh with that information. And then, of course, the cafeteria menu never fails, a rule of thumb. But it's an important point. Whether or not you think it's important, you need to think about some of the key reasons that people go to your intranet in the first place and be sure to include that information. Certainly doesn't mean you need an entire, menu listing from the cafeteria huge on the front page of your intranet. But thinking about why people get there in the first place and what keeps them coming back is a helpful piece of information there. So let's look at design. Let's talk a little bit about design. There's a lot of intranet bashing. There's a decent amount of bashing of some of the more popular internal collaboration tools for, don't make it look like SharePoint, don't make it look like this or that. But really, the idea of design and design for everyone / design for no one is really key in intranets. Carlos, can you talk a little bit about how you see design fitting into the plan for creating an intranet?
I think people don't give it enough value sometimes, where making it appealing and know your audience, right? So if you're an organization or your client is a creative client, a fashion company or an entertainment company, know that they're probably going to value design a lot more, and the audience is going to value design a lot more. But even if you work at, and not to put any lawyers or insurance people down, but if you work in a law firm or an insurance company, design's maybe not as important. Branding of some kind is, but any little bit of design just makes it more appealing and people will want to go there.
Right. And I think also worth noting is that, design isn't just about making it pretty or making it appealing. It's also about making it the most useful and most most engaging experience that it can be. So we've for a long time treated our intranets like kind of the back-end tools that they were originally created to be, where some of the most popular and some of the most successful intranets that we see out there are really being considered and built like a public-facing website and less like a back-end document system. So let's look at this one. This is one that I know, Carlos, makes you cringe, especially since it's coming from a company that is known for simple, beautiful, functional design, and yet the IKEA inside Intranet is one that would be difficult to put together with an Allen wrench. So tell us a little bit about IKEA inside.
I think the most frustrating part of this design, and you're right when you talked about it's more than just pretty colors. It's also, again, what's the business value? What's really difficult here is that navigation. I don't know how you could come up with a radio button being a good form of navigation. What would the experience even be? I almost want to take a weekend job at IKEA just so I can get into the site and see how it functions, because I don't know what the expectation would be when you click that human resource radio button. So that to me is really difficult. That's even if the whole rest of the site looked really pretty, I think that would ruin the entire experience.
Yeah, and I think, the idea here, they really had a great idea with the idea, they have very few containers here, right? Mm-hmm. Some clarity around where you are on the site with the breadcrumb navigation at the top.
It's branded.
It's branded, and yet, what's that strange horse doing there, and what are those icons for, and how do we need that many levels of navigation? You have the navigation across the top, mm-hmm. the navigation across down the left, and then you also have all of these radio buttons that, who knows what happens when you push one of those.
And then the next to the top navigation, that what I'm assuming is a drop-down arrow, would hint that there are more navigation items under all of those headings.
Right. Okay, so that's a fun one. Let's look at this one. Carlos, talk me through the IntuWeb intranet system.
I think the guy in the image on the left says it all. That is extreme frustration of button overload. I mean, this is it has to be an internet site from the 90s, because this is classic 90s, big buttons, some images, some words. They take the concept of a picture's worth 1,000 words and then just added about 1 million of them through all these buttons here. So it's too, I like that it's grouped, right? I like that there's icons. There's no text, so this is going to pass that text squint test. But then you've lost balance and gone completely in the other direction. There's almost no explaining of what you're trying to get out of this intranet, other than, let's click visitation security module and let's see what that does, or work and compensation module and let's see what that does. So it's too far in the other direction now. Okay.
And then let's take a look at this one. This one, that I guess I'd ask you, besides there being a little bit, maybe too many words on the far right there and some folders and things. Tell me what's wrong with this one. What's the problem here?
So on the surface, I think this is it would look like it's a decent intranet site. Again, I would advise them to really think about the executive blog, and if you have commitment from your executives that they're going to keep that fresh. I'm not turned off by the amount of words. Really great carousel again, new style of carousel. My big concern with this, and what I've seen people be tempted to do, is not take iconography into account. Just because you find this really cool icon, and to you, it really resonates with where you're trying to take them to. So say, for example, the one to the right of the heart. This is where we go to get our company credit card. Well, is that a company credit card, or is that where you go to get your ID? So that's a huge pitfall, is make sure that you give your icons some strategy. Either label exactly what they are, and then people start to make that association, just like with the Twitter icon. If you see that little bird in the circle, you know it's Twitter. You know it's Twitter because people have made that connection now. Without that, you can then you might be forced to engage in an entire study of what your organization feels an icon means to them, which can vary region to region, country to country. So be careful when you use icons like that because it could mean different things to different people unless it's already well established. Though these are icons that have been in the organization for years and everyone knows what they mean. Other than that, I mean, it could be anything.
Right, right. So icons that mean nothing to people or mean a lot of things to people are not any more useful than having a whole huge block of text that people don't pay attention to. Because if you don't know what the icon is for, eventually you're just going to start ignoring it. Okay, so let's talk about a better option. Tell me about this one. This is a really interesting intranet. Very, very different look and feel. Very different concept here. Talk about what you see here and what's working here.
I love this one. Very few containers, right? And they're all nice and big. There's icons. Documents, is a document. Calendars, that's pretty universal. But feedback, that little thought bubble. Great use of colors, combination of colors. Icons and what you should be associating them with. It almost looks like the Microsoft Metro UI that's popular now in their OS and their mobile system. But you come here for very specific things, and I think it has a very clear message of what this intranet's for.
How do you feel about the QR code, though?
It can be, if it's not a major piece and it's kind of like a fun little piece.
Right.
I don't think it's terrible, but how many people are going to engage in that? I don't know. It might be as some kind of company initiative. I would say just think about how often people are going to whip out a phone and scan that QR.
Right.
But if it's some scavenger hunt initiative, then sure, use it.
Right. And then let's talk about this one. This is the first one we've looked at today. That's a true mobile experience. But mobile is increasingly important in the intranets that we're designing. Can you talk a little bit about the way that icons are done here and what you think about this concept?
I love it. Everything's clearly defined. You know what you're clicking, why you're clicking it, why you would want to go in there. It's not an overwhelming amount of icons. The traditional 3x3, the 9-icon grid, I think works really well here so that you don't need a lot of scrolling. You can almost envision your users holding the phone in their hand and with one or two thumb clicks, they're where they need to be.
Yeah. Carlos, do you see a lot of your clients feeling like their employees are going to be accessing their intranet on mobile devices? And can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, we've gone too far with mobile now for that not to be just an expectation. It's one of those things that's now just standard. You almost don't even have to advertise that anymore as, hey, this intranet solution supports mobile, because it's expected, right? It's one of those things where you're more likely to hear, well, why wouldn't it support mobile? Because we've just come too far with smartphones.
Right, and I think a lot of major corporations, retailers, restaurants, a lot of their employees are accessing information on tablets that are installed at the counter or in the store, and it's less about an employee on their own personal phone spending time on their weekend looking at their intranet. It's really more about where people are accessing that information at work, and very often that is on a smaller device than a desktop setup. So let's talk a little bit about a couple of tips and tricks, and then we'll move on to one more. So a few tips and tricks. So design with purpose, educate stakeholders, get real requirements. These are the tenets that we talk about a lot in the idea of designing for a really specific reason and for a purpose. Second, if it's really intuitive to one person, it's not intuitive. That's one person. So you really want to think about what's intuitive to the greatest number of people. And then third, beware the icons. There are really two choices here. And Carlos, can you kind of talk about the two ways you can go with icons and a little bit about what you mean by those ways of doing it?
Sure, you can engage, and I've walked clients through this before, where you have this entire study with your organization and you take like a focus group from different parts of the organization, different departments, different regions, and you start going through the process of seeing what icons resonate with them and what it means for them. And it can be a really long process, but does usually, if done right, results in a shorter adoption for the organization when you roll out your iconography. The other is show them a picture, tell them what it means. And it takes longer for them to adopt, but it's considerably less expensive and it's quicker to get it to the intranet.
Great, great. Well, let's talk a little bit about social. It's very hard to talk about an intranet anymore without somebody saying, you know, we want a social intranet. I want our intranet to be social. And this was a funny picture from intranetsecrets.com. I use our intranet as a music sharing platform with my coworkers. Something that we talk about a lot is the idea of smart social and about social for work versus social for personal. And the distinction is really important based on the goals of your intranet and how you really want to use social there. So we're going to take a look at a couple of options. So this is a good example of an attempt to create this social experience on an intranet. This is showing these posts and some information that are going on. But you know, one of the things you'll notice right away is that this really looks like they are trying to replicate sort of a Facebook or social network sort of environment, but at the same time, it falls really short of that, right? It certainly doesn't feel like Facebook. It certainly doesn't feel like a social experience that a lot of us are used to. And it's unclear about what it's for. Really similarly, this is another one that's really similar to that. You know, you've got your activity feed here on the left and everybody's pictures and photographs, and you can post, and, you know, they're even using the word post and asking, what are you working on? And, that kind of thing, like a traditional, intranet or a traditional, social network. Yet at the same time, you know, this isn't Facebook. It isn't Twitter. It isn't a social network that people are using. And so a lot of what you see here and feel here feels just kind of like a bad replication of an existing social tool that people are using. And I think a note about this is, you know, if people want to socialize with one another, with their colleagues, they'll probably connect with them on some of those existing social networks like Twitter and Facebook. And the second question is, do you really want them to be, is the purpose of your intranet to create a place for people to spend just socializing, or is it to create a social way to do work together? Carlos, any thoughts about this kind of social concept or what we're seeing here?
So this almost goes back to our first bullet as well. Know what you're going to put on there, and that understanding that when it comes to especially a landing page, right? Because from the navigation, we could see that they're on the home. This is the landing page. Mm-hmm. This is Boardwalk, a monopoly. This is Boardwalk. This is the most expensive property to build a hotel. And you've dedicated 50% of your real estate to an activity feed with things like Baldeep Mac added 2 new colleagues, right? So when someone comes here, that's the kind of things that they're taking in, and you're almost saying, you know, why am I going to come in here for a senseless activity feed? I'm not a huge fan of activity feeds. There are use cases where they make sense, but things just letting you know, this person signed in, this person signed out, this person read this document, this person updated this document, might not be a good way of taking up so much real estate, right? So if you force yourself into thinking, giving everything a percentage, so 100% is your entire landing page, 50%, half of what you have to allocate is going to that activity feed. Is that the best use of this real estate? When someone comes here, is that what's going to engage them and keep them there, keep them clicking through the intranet?
Yeah. And then this is another one. This is something that you occasionally get a lot of questions about. But it's again, how do you want people to be spending time at work? This is an example of a whole bunch of gamification that was done for a corporate intranet, badges and medals and icons and scores and a lot of photos, personal photos, and all this kind of thing. This if you have an organization that is truly well served by gamification in some way, and you can really make a business case for that, something like this might be an option. But if you're doing it just for the sake of gamification or just for the sake of social, it could be something that creates honestly a bit of a distraction to staff, and is, almost none of what you see on this page seems to be really about work, and that's something that could be a challenge. So let's look at a couple of really great examples of social in work. So this is a great one. This is a project collaboration page for their intranet, and what you see is information that is really useful to people. You do see some project activity. Perhaps not all of it is super relevant. You've got a flying lady photo here. I'm not sure that that's 100% relevant to the project they're working on. But you do have project information like who's on the team, critical links for the project, the activity that's happening right now, and documents that are surfacing, the conversation that's relevant to the project they're working on. And then even the navigation is actually built towards doing work together. So who's on the team, what the calendar is for the project, the tasks for the project, the documents for the project, and so forth, as well as having some real estate dedicated to the timeline for the project itself. So here you see, you really see people working towards and working on a site or a project together online, and they're having a very, quote unquote, social conversation about it, but their social conversation is focused on work and on the work that they're doing together. And I think this is a really good example of intranet done social, done very well. Another one that we have, and this is the tasks. The images here are a bit blurry, and I apologize for that. This is a concept that some folks built for a legal intranet for a legal team. And here you can see there's a lot of social aspects here, things that are pinned and tasks that have been populated and some statistics and, things. You can see a follow button up there. All of these things are really great. This is all specific, to the legal cases and things that this company is working on. So still feels like kind of that leaderboard and kind of that social feel, but very, very relevant to work and very relevant to the specific work they're doing. Any thoughts on those, Carlos?
I love the one before, to kind of piggyback what you say. I love this one too. And again, see, this is a great example of two social aspects that are usually misused. In this case, project activity absolutely makes sense. You want to know in a project whenever a certain document is updated. So that Tom Wilson updated that document, that's usually pretty relevant to a project collaboration space. Project conversation, same thing, right? You keep all the conversation in one place where people can go and find it. I have clients who ask me to throw it on a legal policy page where it just lists forms and policies, and I ask them, what's the expectation that you're going to post a new T&M policy and someone's going to hit like on it and they're going to start to talk about, wow, this is the best policy since the last policy.
Right.
Now, that's probably not a good application for it, but
right.
know where it fits. Don't do social for the sake of social because it's the current term that you're hearing a lot on intranets. Right. You still, like anything, you have to find a relevant place to put that functionality.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's just talk just quick, reiterate those tips and tricks. Social for what? For spending time socializing? No. For making your company look hip and cool? No. For being informed about and participating in relevant work conversations and collaboration, that's where it is. So when you're looking at social, think about, where you can add social for that purpose and not just so that you can say that you've got, like buttons and circles. So look less for like buttons and circles and more for things like data security to keep people in the right conversation, seamless integration with your existing communication systems, and truly relevant content. So what have we learned today? This has been a fun journey through a lot of different intranets. Let's talk about a few things that we've learned. So unclutter that space, and we don't mean putting it in closets. Keeping your content uncluttered and the most important stuff at the top is really key. Prioritize the journey for your staff. Don't just hand them a huge map with all of the different places they could go. Surface what they care about, not just what you care about. Design for purpose, not for beauty contests. and use social for productivity, not popularity. So if you're wondering about what's next or some different ideas that you could have going forward from here, some things that you could do if you're looking at an intranet, not sure what to do next, consider a collaboration discovery with someone who knows what's up. So finding an organization that's done a lot of intranet, done a lot of collaboration work, and really figuring out, discovering what you need, it can sometimes save you a lot of money in the long run of implementation. Second is to mess around with some collaboration tools out there. There's a lot of them out there, and some of them are open source, which means there's no license fees and open code. And that can be really helpful in sort of banging around, looking at the features and figuring out what you really care about and what you really want. And then finally, find a partner to help you build your intranet in clear steps. Don't try to boil the ocean or fix everything at once. I know a lot of the teams that Carlos works with are building intranets kind of one piece or one step at a time, and that can be a really good thing. So that's our webinar for today. We're sort of right on time, and I know that I have not left a whole lot of time for questions. I apologize for that. Today, I would be very happy to take a question or two if we have time, and then we can conclude and be happy to follow up with you offline if you'd like. So thank you. Let's see here. I'm going to come back to not a full screen. Here we go.
Karen, we have one question from Ryan. He asks, what upcoming features in OpenAtrium 2 are you most excited about in regards to intranets?
Ooh. What upcoming features are we most excited about? Carlos, do you have any upcoming features that you're super excited about?
I am. The current client that I'm working with, we set up a solution to allow for targeted publishing. So if you think of an organization where you might have a scenario where there's an HQ, and then there's all these satellites or outposts like stores, districts, you can communicate to all of them at once, or you can selectively target only stores in region A and region C, or maybe just one district within region B, or maybe even a group of them, a little bit from region A, a few from region B, and one from region C. And it's a really intuitive way to say, I want to almost hand place this content in these areas.
Yeah, that's great. One of the features that I'm really looking forward to seeing how it grows more. It's something that's already there, but we're doing a lot with it. Is just the concept of faceted search, and faceted search not only just as a search tool overall for a site, but also for specific areas like user search and the creation of faceted user directories and things like that, so that you can not only look for a person, but you could look for, if you don't know exactly who you're looking for, you could look for somebody who has your same role in your same region, but at a different location or something like that, or somebody that has your same areas of interest or speaks the same languages or things like that. I really love the idea of the power of search in OpenAtrium and in intranets overall, just because I think there's such an opportunity to allow people to find the content that they really care about in a way that's a lot better than it used to be. It's not just about throwing something in a search bar and then yielding a billion results. It's really about finding exactly what you need in the spaces that you need it. And I love where things are going with that. That's probably my favorite one right now. Any other questions? Okay, well, it's 9. Where I am, it's exactly. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So here's one more question. What is the site search profile with OpenAtrium 2 out of the box?
The site search profile with OpenAtrium out of the box, I believe out of the box it is powered with Solr, although that might be a module on Drupal.org that you have to install specifically. I actually am not quite sure whether it installs automatically or not. When we use OpenAtrium internally, we always have it with Solr, as well as we turn on Tika for in document and PDF search as well. Great. Well, it's the end of the hour that we have together, so I'm going to go ahead and close up our webinar for today. But thank you very much for attending, and we look forward to connecting with you in the future. Appreciate your time today.